Restored, corrected, and delivered by the Word of God and the power of the Holy Spirit. With your host, Chris Ward, as we open The Exorcist Files.
This is Pastor Chris Ford, and I'd like to welcome you to The Exorcist Files tonight. Tonight, my special guest is Anthony Jess LaVey. Anthony is the son of Anton LaVey, who is the founder of the Church of Satan in USA in San Francisco. And I think you're just going to love Anthony. I know him as Jess, his middle name. So I'm going to call him Jess. But I want to welcome you to the show tonight, Jess. How are you tonight?
I'm just great in the Lord.
Great. You're sounding loud and clear here, too. You know, before we start, I just want to say to our listeners that this may not be a show for children. I think it'd be okay for teenagers, because I think they need to hear some of this. And what do you think, Jess?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I agree, too, because you never know what we're going to touch on, and we certainly don't, in the process of talking about Halloween, we certainly don't want to sound like we're endorsing or lifting up any kind of Satanism. Well, I just want to welcome you, and I'm sitting here, I've known you for a while now, and I understand why your voice is so young and things like that. Maybe you'd like to just share with them why it is that, well, first of all, how old are you?
I'm 30 years old.
30 years old, and you sound like you're 9.
Thank you. That's a compliment at this age.
But why is that? Why do you sound so young? What would cause you to have such a young voice?
Well, when I was with my father, he did a lot of abusive things to me that weren't normal, and one of them was castration. And at the age of 12, if it's done at that age, it can do some severe damage because you're in the middle of development. So
right.
I didn't develop a deep voice, and it kind of held me back in a lot of, areas. I become kind of handicapped.
But that was part of your training, wasn't it?
Not that particular thing. It was just a matter of trying to change my will to become a part of his church.
I see.
And I was pretty strong-minded kid, or strong-willed, and even though he did that to me, I did not change.
Mm-hmm.
I still continued to follow Christ instead of my dad's way, which was Satanism.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were born in Germany, right?
East Berlin, yes, in the Mother Church.
In the Mother Church, which is the headquarters, East Berlin, and also Amsterdam.
Yes.
And it's interesting because I know that for a few years there, East Berlin was pretty cut off by the Soviet bloc, but it didn't seem to hamper Satanism.
No. It's a very... Germany is very dark. Anybody that visits there knows that. Dark in the way of spirit realm. It's, and feel the darkness that saturates that country.
You know, you mentioned in one of your information history handouts that you gave me that there is like a divine council of 13,
Yes.
and one of those members is in the Russian government.
Yes, it's 12 men of our U.S. government, and this is probably going to offend some people's ears out there, but they need to know the truth that 12 men of our U.S. government, which is governors and presidents and so on, that belong to that, and then one Russian delegate.
Now, do they call it the New World Order there, or is it referred to like the Golden Dawn or Order of Temple or something like that?
Most of them belong to secret societies, and it's like levels. They graduate up to the Order of the Golden Dawn is the last level that they reach before they go into the Council of 13, or if they're selected. Like Bush. Now, I can say Bush because it's publicized as belonging to the Order of the Golden Dawn, Plus, he is now one of the Council of 13.
I see.
That's the senior Bush.
The senior Bush, yeah, and he was a member of Skull and Bones at Yale, so.
He was also a member of quite a few different societies, secret societies, with Rosicrucian, Bolivian Cove.
Now let's get back to you for a second. I know you don't like to talk about yourself, but you know, obviously some people are tuned in just to find out some things about you. You were the Great White Hope. You were being trained to be the next Pope, as it were.
Black Pope.
The Black Pope. And what happened?
Well, they consider my dad the Black Pope. I don't know if I consider my aunt the Black Pope. But I was groomed and born for the purpose of becoming the next leader in the Church of Satan. It's always the firstborn son who is the one to take their father's place. And I kind of put a dent in the whole system, which kind of rocked their boat, rocked their world.
How did that happen?
I don't know. I just danced to a different tune. And when I was born, I just didn't fit in. I never could believe what my father believed in. And by the time I was 10 years old, I was sending for Bible studies in the mail trying to find out why he hated God, and then it turned into something more than just finding out about God. I began to want to have a relationship with God because it just seemed like a better side. It wasn't so dark and hateful. And so from there, I just I kept the Bible studies top secret. I did it until I was 14 years old, and then I decided to ask a church for help in coming to Christ.
You know, that's an incredible story, you know, the fact that you just really wanted to know why your dad was so angry.
Well, he mentioned many times when he talked to people, and then people would try to come to the church and try to convert him, and he would play games with them. And I see all this, and he'd always say behind the scenes that how much he hated Christians and how much he hated God. I wanted to find out why he hated God. I was a very inquisitive kid, and I liked to find things out.
Now, you know, your middle name is spelled J-A-I. I call you Jess. But actually, your mother, wasn't that your mother's first name?
My mother's first name was Despa Little Wolf, and she was an American Indian. My dad and her married, and my middle name means Jess in English.
In English, yeah.
But it's pronounced Jai. It's written.
Right. You know, now you mentioned how during that period of time when you were like doing these secret Bible studies in the mail, how you ended up in a Christian coffee house down in Orlando.
Oh, yes. I think I was about 12 years old. This man, his name was Don Taylor. I'll never forget him. I don't think he's alive anymore. But I was on the verge of committing suicide, and I had dumped a lot of about 20 pills down my throat. And I was walking around, and I saw this coffee house, and I decided to go in and sit down. I didn't know it was a Christian coffee house. When I got in there, all the walls were covered in verses, but I didn't know they were verses. And until I really looked at one real close, but I was so out of it that I keeled right over there. And it so happened that Don was there, and he had a paramedic that worked with him to help kids come to Christ. And they hauled me upstairs and prayed over me, but I didn't accept Christ at that point. But he did plant the seed. He did tell me while I was there in Orlando for a few months about Christ.
You know, I know there's a group of guys listening to the show tonight that they're all involved with street evangelism, and they're just doing everything they can to reach kids. And I was thinking about how Don had put the scriptures on the wall of that coffee house, and people probably thought he was nuts.
Probably, but he drew a lot of kids in there. That place was packed.
And I guess the words on the wall, like you say, the seed of God was sown.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times we do things in evangelism, and we don't realize that maybe, you know, the son of Anton LaVey sitting out there in the group. and he's just scarfing that up, you know.
Well, there's a lot of kids like me out there, and there still is, but they come from occult families.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many of them out there just wanting help and wanting out of it.
Now, what about your mom? Do you have any contact with your mom or anything?
No, just my stepmother.
Mm-hmm.
About 5 years ago, my stepmother came to the Lord, and she lives in nearby town,
Mm-hmm.
and I take care of her. But my mother I never got to really know.
Mm-hmm.
She died when I was 14 in a ritual. She gave her life up in a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
Which
So
happened.
she was sacrificed.
Yes.
Uh-huh. You know, this is shocking to some people listening. They really don't believe the stories that there is actual human sacrifice that takes place in these things.
Well, it's like a Baptist preacher that called me this week wanting to know, is there really something like this happen in a community? And it was hard for him to believe that these things happen to children.
Mm-hmm.
And it does. We have no idea what's in our community because we're so busy focusing on other things. And our kids are exposed to all this stuff in the schools, through teachers, through people who are in the school system who try to recruit. Parents don't even know what's going on. And pretty soon they got the kids hooked, and then from there they use the kids to the same thing, recruit other kids. And they got them hooked into occult games and occult stuff. And then Halloween comes around, and, you know, they use kids to kidnap kids for the sake of sacrificing them at Halloween.
The biggest holiday of all, the biggest celebration of Satanists is Halloween.
Yes. The sacrifice that they have to give has to be pure, and they consider a kid pure, offering up to Satan.
Now, you still got two sisters that are in this, right?
Yes, I do.
And they haven't come to the Lord. They might even be listening.
No, they haven't. So, Zena is a member of a different church group with Michael Aquino. They pretty much do the same thing as my dad has done, but it's a different self-styled Satanism.
Mm-hmm.
And then my other sister, Carla, is still in my dad's church.
I see. Now, who's the Black Pope now?
No one.
No one.
They're hurting for leaders, for a leader to take it, and they have none. In fact, they tried to sue me and take me to court a couple of years ago to make me take that, and they couldn't even do that.
That was just after your dad died.
Yes.
And what happened? Were you kidnapped, or